read some books about testimonies. This is very important to me because I don't share my testimony. You could talk to Henry and 90-something messages there. I shared my testimony once. I don't share my testimony in every church I go to. However, when I feel extremely led of the Lord, I will do so. I have felt extremely led of the Lord in this revival to do this. And I'm going to tell you there's several reasons for it. I've been offered to write that book. Cleveland was going to pay for a Pathway Press, and they were going to have a ghost author. All I had to do was to put it on tape, and they were going to write it for me. I just didn't feel comfortable in that. I don't think things of God are for sale. And I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm saying I couldn't do it. I share my testimony for several reasons. I'm going to share where I came from, not because I'm proud of that. And understand, to be a member of a street gang is no accomplishment. To be a leader of a street gang is no accomplishment. To fight 117 fights in the ring really is not an accomplishment. To win 3 Golden Glove Awards are not accomplishments. In some people's eyes, they are. But I saw the reality when I met Jesus. We raise up heroes because they could hit baseballs real far, they could run so far with a football, just because they were gifted physically. We make them giants amongst men. And the greatest giants that I've ever seen since I've come to reality were not the ones that could run the fastest or be the strongest or win the most fights. The giants were the men and women throughout history that saw a cause and said that cause was worth dying for. I share my testimony tonight primarily that perhaps none of you have never done drugs in your life. I hope you haven't. I share it that you never will. I share my testimony tonight that you never leave God, because sin will always take you farther than you ever want to go. You'll say, God, I'll draw the line here, but you mess with sin long enough and you'll find yourself surely doing deeper things than you ever dreamed you were capable of. I was born just like any other child. I wasn't born a drug addict. I wasn't born a breaker of arms, and I wasn't born with a mind that wanted to cut people's fingers off, and when they begged that I wouldn't do it, that I could feel no fear. I wasn't born that way. So I share this tonight. If anybody at all believes that I'm bragging or something like that, then don't stay. If you think I'm proud of what I've done, then don't stay. Because that's not why I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it because I've watched young people die. You know how many people in the slammer are backslidden Christians? Do you know how many guys I knew in prison whose fathers were preachers? That's why I get so excited with Brother Massey's children. Because so many people in prison whose lives are destroyed were people that once knew God. You see, once you've known God and you leave God, you're on Satan's hit list. He knows that if you ever get right with God again, you're dangerous. A Christian is dangerous to the devil. So if you ever backslide, you're the first one he's going after. Most demon-possessed people I've met that I've had to pray through with when I did prison ministry were ex-Christians. Many of them were preachers' kids. Most of them had been Spirit-filled. In order to backslide, one has to totally say, God, I don't want you anymore. I do not want you in my life. I reject you as Savior. When you do that, you're saying, devil, I want you in my life. You're inviting demon possession. Well, anyway, I was born in the city of Chicago. I was born to the child of 10, number 9 out of 10, or number 8 out of 10. At the age of 12 years old, I went to reform school for the first time. And The first night that I was there, they tried to rape me. That's reality. In the late 60s and early 70s, the laws exist that we have today. But there wasn't the civil rights movements that we have seen, and therefore many of the laws were not enforced, and they're still not. First night I was there, they tried to rape me. I took a fork to them, and I saved my virginity, so to speak. But my punishment for stabbing several people with a fork was they put me in a 3-foot by 3-foot by 3-foot box. 3 feet high, 3 foot long, 3 foot wide. It was in a very dark room. In fact, to me it was pitch black. I don't remember being able to see my hand. 12 years old. They would take my food and they'd have a little door and they'd slide it in, and I'd sleep in that box. And I ate in that box. I went to the bathroom in that box. They would come get the box, and they'd move it around. They'd move it around in that dark room and never left the dark room. But see, to a 12-year-old kid, when they move a box around, and then they would drop it, they would bump it, and then they threw sand on it. You see, to a 12-year-old kid, you're getting buried. You claw at the box, you bite the box, you don't get out of the box. You scream, but nobody hears you. You beg, but nobody cares. I spent a week in that box, so I was told. And a day seemed like a week, and 2 days seemed like a month, and a week seemed like a year. And something happened to me in that box that I would have to call demon possession. Because when I came out of that box, I was incapable of feeling anymore. I never felt good. I never felt bad. I never felt. You know, to not be able to feel, sometimes even feeling bad is good. It's better than not being able to feel. I came out of that box and I was back in reform school. A couple of years later, at age 17, I was incarcerated at Joliet State Penitentiary. And at age 20, I went to Statesville Federal Penitentiary. And I seen people raped. I'd seen kids that never done nothing wrong. They made one mistake. They did one thing. And here they are, and I seen them raped. I seen a kid raped that bought one bag of dope. When I came out of prison, I ended up getting deeper. My drug habit was $1,000 a day. And I got where I would breaking arms for a living, legs for a living, cutting people's fingers off for a living, cutting people's noses off for a living, cutting their ears off. I wasn't human. When I was 18 years old, as you know, I watched my brother die in a street gang fight. I'll never forget that night because I heard these ironic words as Donald screamed, "John saved me." Ironic that he would use the words, "save me." You see, I got to him. All his fingers were gone. His eyes were shooting all over the place. And you see, once you've seen someone die, you know what the signs are. When their eyes begin to roll and their color begins to leave. They begin to sweat, but yet they're cold. I picked his insides up and I put them back in. And I held him like a baby. I watched him breathe his last breath. And with his last words, he said, "John, save me." And I watched him die and go to hell. See, I didn't know Jesus. I'd never heard his name. Nobody told me. And he died. He went to hell without God. You see, I can't do anything to get him out. He's there. But I've committed to God that I'll spend the rest of my days. And I'll preach till I drop. I don't care. Because one young person rescued from hell is worth all the tiredness, all the traveling, all the time away from family. I've often had people wonder if I'm for real or not, because I get so excited, because I preach the way I do. I don't know if it's maybe I don't pray enough to look real, or maybe they're so unreal they don't know something real when they see it. I don't know. But I've gotten tired of trying to prove if I'm real or not. And all I want to do is tell people about Jesus. At age 21, I started getting into serious crime. The last 6 months before I was saved, at age 24, they tried to kill me 3 times. They did shoot my brother, but he lived, and they stabbed my other brother, and he lived, and Tom left town. And I was sitting at home one night, and I was real buzzed. You know, I'd been smoking dope all night and just drinking brews. And my brother calls me up on the phone. He says, "Come down to this revival." I said, "What's a revival?" He said, "Just come check it out." I said, "Man, I ain't going to church. I ain't never been in a church, and I ain't going to start now." He said, "Well, come to church anyhow." I said, "Man, I ain't even dressed. Now, you may think this is ignorant, being raised in the Bible Belt, but there's a lot of people up north that ain't never been in a church and don't know how to go to church. They never went. They don't know nothing about it. So he says, just come like you were. And I don't know why I decided to go, but I said, okay, I'll come. So I walk in the back of this Church of God in Joliet, Illinois. I got no shirt on. Got hair down about here. Got a beard, you know. I got a pair of old faded jeans, no shirt. No shirt. Just walk into church, me and my wife. She put on a dress. She looked like she'd been in a church before. She knew what to do. So I walk in there, and the clerk comes up to me, and he uses great wisdom. He says, "It's kind of cold in there. The air conditioning's on. Why don't you wear my jacket?" So I put on, I'm buzzed anyway. I don't care. So I sit down, and the guy gets to preaching. I don't remember nothing he said. Not a thing. Not a thing. But suddenly, I feel guilty for everything that I ever done, and I ain't never felt guilty before. This is a new experience for this kid, you know. I don't understand this. And then this dude's preaching, and these little fists inside of my stomach start beating at the outside of my stomach. And I say, whoa, that little demon was trying to get out. I didn't understand. My wife, she goes up, and all these little old ladies mugged her in the front of the church. They jumped on her, hands flipping in the air, just like we've been having here. So I'm really freaking out, you know. So I jump up and going to go rush the altar and rescue my wife. My brother grabs me by the arm. He says, "Don't worry about it. She's all right." So we go home. This is for you wives here, future wives maybe. We go home, and I say to my wife, I said, "Hey, babe, let's get high." She said, "Nah, we don't get high no more." I said, "What?" "Okay, you want to get high?" I said, "All right, let's get drunk, you know." And he said, "No, we don't get drunk no more." I said, "All right, okay." So I put on a Rolling Stone album. That's kind of old stuff for you, but it wasn't for me. And the song just happened to be "Sympathy for the Devil." And this little woman that ain't never even spoke back to me before walks up to this album, knocks it plumb off, knocks the whole stereo off the stand, looks me in the eye and says, "We don't listen to that no more." Now, I'm not telling you wives to go home and do that. It just worked for my wife. I don't know about your husband. So I told him, and I'm going to jack her jaw. You know, I ain't never hit her before, but I figured if she's going to get hit, now's the time. She broke my stereo, she broke my record, and now I'm going to just belt her, you know. I didn't hit her. I never done a contract on a woman or a kid. I wasn't going to beat up my wife, you know. So I told him to hit this chick, and she looks at me. Now I fought 117 fights. I fought Mike Weaver, I fought George Foreman, I fought Ernie Shavers, I fought James Tillis, and I got this 5'4" Polish girl standing in front of me, and I told him I look her in the eyes, and as soon as her eyes met, I started shaking. Just started trembling, man. I'm freaking out. I got these little hands beating on the inside, and I'm shaking. And I'm standing there saying, what in the world am I scared of? So I take off, and I go on a 3-day drunk. I come back, and I'm laying on the couch, and I said, "Baby," she gets up in the morning, I'm all messed up, been in several fights, and I look at her and said, "Now what do you think?" She looked at me, and she said, "I love you." I didn't want to hear that. So I called Dominic. He worked for me, and I said, "Dominic, at 10:20, which happened to be the exact time, I want you to come to my house. I want you to shoot me twice. Don't kill me now, Dominic, but shoot me twice. Because at 10:25, I'm going to shoot Roxanne." I take a gun. Now listen to me. This is important for those of you that are praying for somebody. I don't know nothing about the Bible. I don't know nothing about the Holy Ghost. I mean, it wasn't like I was raised in church and I remembered this, so I freaked out and imagined it. I didn't know this stuff. I take a gun, a Brazilian-made throwaway. In other words, they ain't got no serial numbers. You use it one time, you throw it away. The miracle is me and this woman are still married. I take this gun, and I'm going to shoot her. And I start for the bedroom, and the doorway's wide open. There ain't no door there. I go to the bedroom, I'm going to blow her away. I hit this doorway where there ain't no door, and I run into a door that is not there. Now, that's over the head for some people who just don't believe what God can do, but for those of you that do, you believe this. I run into this door that ain't there. Now I'm really freaking out. I got something beating me up on the inside. I'm scared of my wife, and now I'm running into doors that ain't there, so I figured there's a ghost in my house. And there was. The Holy Ghost. But I think it's like Uncle Hoyman or someone like this is in my house. So I said, I'll just shoot her from here. I'll stick my arm in the doorway, and I'll blow her brains out from here. Well, that don't work either. The door's still there. So Dominic shows up. I go to the front door. I said, Dominic, don't shoot me, because I ain't shot her. We'll figure something out tomorrow. So anyway, I'm walking around my kitchen. I got this fist beating me on the inside. I feel guilty, and I never felt guilty before. I got a wife I'm scared of. I got a ghost in my house. What am I going to do? What am I telling you? If you got unsaved loved ones, don't quit praying for them now. Pray till a ghost shows up in your house. Amen? Give the Lord a hand clap of praise. Pray till a ghost shows up in the house. He'll do it. So I'm walking around the house. Good thing you got saved tonight. You know why? Because they would have kept praying and the ghost would have showed up in your house. I know this. So I'm walking around the house, and I get to this telephone, and this number comes in my head that I don't know from nothing. But I mean, everything else is falling apart in my life, so I figure this is some phone number that I remembered from the past, so I'll call this number, and probably my problem would be solved by calling this number. Well, I called this number, and the little preacher that was preaching the night my wife got saved answers the phone and says, "Hello, John." Now, I know it's a conspiracy. I got a ghost in my house. I'm getting beat up from the inside out. I can't shoot. I'm scared of my wife. I can't shoot her because there's a wall where there was no wall. Now I pick up the phone. I call a number I never heard before, and there's a man on the phone. That's the preacher that preached for my wife. I tell him what's going on. He said, "Pray." I said, "Okay." I mean, I got a ghost in my house. I got something inside of me. I got a wife I'm scared of. I'll pray. I mean, I'll try anything now. Sure, I'll pray. So I got on my knees, and I prayed over the phone. Didn't feel anything. Not a thing. But I had this wild urge to start fleshing my drugs. And I fleshed 8 pounds of pot. a 5-gallon pickle jar of lewds, a 5-gallon pickle jar of speeders, I don't know how much cocaine. I flushed the toilet all night. The next day, my brother called, my brother Dan. He said, hey, John, did you get the drugs in? Because he sold them for me. I said, yeah. He said, well, you got any of that pot? I said, no, man, I flushed it. He said, hey, you know, this is a family that don't know nothing about God. He said, well, how about the Quaaludes? I said, man, I flushed those too. He said, how about the cocaine? I said, well, I got a problem there. I flushed it too. He said, well, what happened? You get busted? And I thought, yeah, sort of. He said, well, what happened? I said, Dan, I don't know. I said, but I think I got religion. And he said, you got religion? I said, yeah, I think I got religion. That's what I think happened. He said, can I get it? And I'm an ignoramus. I don't know. I said, sure, maybe. I don't know. I don't know, Dan. I think you can get this thing. He said, well, how'd you get it? I said, I don't know. He said, can I get it? I said, I don't know. So I said, wait a minute, I'll call you right back. I called the pastor up. He ain't home. You know, that's how it always is. When you need the pastor, you know. So I call him up. He ain't home. So I called my brother, and I said, Dan, I don't know what to do. I said, I really don't know what to do. He said, well, can I get it? If you got it, John, I want it. You've never steered me wrong yet. If you got it, I want it. I said, okay. Here's what I'll do. I said, I don't know if you can have it or not. I said, but until the pastor gets back, let's just tell Jesus you're sorry. My brother Dan is a pastor of a church in Wisconsin right now. Give the Lord a hand clap. Sometimes we make it too hard. It gets worse. I go to church after praying this prayer. They get playing the music. I look at all the nuts moving around. I'm really freaking out because these people are crazy. And I like them, but they're crazy. And I ain't going to do that stuff. What happens? I go up front at the altar. They tell me to raise my hand, so I do it. I raise my hand. Next thing you know, 45 minutes later, I'm still dancing. There's something about it. I said all that to say this. I was facing 21 years. You may not want to do like John does, and that's cool. You may not want to jump around like I do, and that's all right too. But please, don't take that from me. I was facing 21 years in prison, and I walked. I got a full pardon in the state of Illinois from the governor's office of Governor Jim Thompson because of my prison work in the state. In 7 years' time, I've preached in 18 states, 3 countries. To the glory of God, I've seen over 4,000 people saved. I've seen over 2,000 filled with the Holy Ghost. I spoke before Congress on drug control. I'm brought to 4 different high schools in the city of Houston. I go to 2 high schools in the city of Dallas and in Irving, Texas, to share Jesus in the high school on the Say No to Dope program. Would you give the Lord a hand clap for that? They pay me to go to public schools and tell their kids about Jesus. That's how desperate things have gotten. I want to share something. 2 things, if I may. And you've been wonderful. I've saved a lot of the nitty-gritties. Does it matter how many fingers I cut off? Does it matter how many noses I cut off? How many lives I've ruined? I can tell you this. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season ye shall harvest, if you faint not. God has saved me and given me a new life. But there's still a lot of nights I wake up and remember the men that begged me not to cut on them. I know God has forgiven me, But I've got a past full of regrets. There's not a week that goes by that I don't wake up in a cold sweat. You see, once you've done something, God can forgive it. But you can't undo the wrong. And sin is always wrong. When you sin, you're always harming someone else besides you. There's no escape of that. What I'm saying is right now, make up your mind. Don't look back like I have to and say, my God, I wish I'd never done that. I wish I'd never done that. You know, that's why I don't share my testimony very often unless I think it's going to help somebody. Because I wish I'd never done that stuff. I wish I didn't have a testimony like that. Because you can't get away from it. You live with it till the day you die. Eight years ago, I was a serious drug addict, been one for 12 years. I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I want to share something really important with you. A nobody from Chicago whose life was totally ruined has had an international ministry. I was in Dallas, Texas 2 years ago, and I got a phone call. And it's this pastor and said, somebody wants to talk to you. I get on the phone, and it's Chuck Connors, the guy that played the Rifleman on TV. How many of you ever saw that? And there was a guy named Clint Walker. Some of you wouldn't know who he was, but he played Cheyenne Boney. Huge dude. Monster of a man. Well, so's Chuck Connors. He's 6'6", and he's huge. No. And Ben Johnson, a guy that starred with John Wayne in several westerns. And they want me to come to a banquet because I do say no dope programs in high schools. How they got my name is still a mystery to me. Well, I said, is alcohol going to be served at this banquet? And they said, yes, it is. And then I said, I'm not going. I said, I'm sorry, but I can't do it. I hung the phone up. And then all of a sudden, the Lord speaks to my heart and says, call him back. So I call him back, and I said, yeah, I'll be there. I didn't want to be there. I don't want to be even around those things. But I go. The nobody from Chicago, that guy that got it. In front of a bunch of movie stars. You talk about feeling like a joke, you know. I walked in, I don't know what to touch. I'm washing my fingers in the little bowl they give you, you know. Never mind, you don't even want to know. You know, it's horrible. I don't know what spoons for what, you know, I'm sitting there, you know. So my whole job, my whole reason for being there, they want me to say this prayer over the meal. I get up and I pray a prayer. To me, it was a pretty calm prayer. We're used to the good stuff around here. I get done praying, I open my eyes, and all I can see is a man's chest. And you ever seen Chuck Connors lately? He ain't the cutest dude on the face of the earth. And I look up, and there he is, right in my face. And he's crying. And he looked at me, and he said, I'd give anything I got. A movie star when a movie star says, I'll give fame, fortune, a notoriety just to have what you got, son, we take it for granted. Then I'm standing there, I'm in awe of this, because I really didn't think it was too kind of a prayer, but it must have been pretty good, you know. I prayed better. I had a dream once I was in a praying contest that we had General Assembly, and all the preachers had numbers on their back. I won't go into it. It was a weird dream. It was a praying contest. I've done good in the praying contest stuff, but we were having praying contests. You have your dreams, I have mine. And Clint Walker gets up, and he goes to the microphone, and he says, take the kegs, take the bars, put them out on the front lawn, because we will not have that in the presence of a man of God. A bum from the jails of Chicago had movie stars moving bars and kegs out on the front lawn because they thought he was a man of God. Give the Lord a hand clap of praise. Hallelujah. Now, I go to prisons 1 month a year I set aside for prison ministry. I know Walter Payton personally. I know Mike Singletary personally. I've worked with Mr. T personally in the prisons. Now listen now. I'm not saying Mr. T is your perfect Christian, because he probably isn't. But any man that is willing to give a week of his time to go down in the jails, be around the body lice, the AIDS, the poivoids, and all the filth and the stench, has to have something going for him. We were sitting there eating a coney dog, me and Mr. T. And I said, Mr. T, I said, I got to ask you a question. See, we used to bounce in the same bar. I bounced in this bar, and he bounced right next door in the other bar. So I knew him. We went to jail together. We both had done time in the same jail we were ministering in. It was really ironic. And I said, you know, what turned your life around? He said, when he met Jesus. Again, I am not picking him up as the epitome of Christianity. But I am not qualified to judge any man's soul. There's only one judge, and that's Christ. He said, you know, John, he said, I really appreciate what you're doing and stuff. He said, and when I get enough money from the movies, I'll quit and I'll just be a full-time preacher. I said, no. When the calling gets so hot you can't stand it, then you'll quit and you'll be a full-time preacher. I know Walter Payton personally. Can I share this with you? Walter Payton, again, I'm not going to say he's a perfect Christian. But when he was drafted, they said he was too small. They said he was not fast enough. They said he didn't have good hands. But he had something that no one knew about. And that was a relationship with Jesus. As you know, he broke almost all the rushing records for the NFL. He holds the record for the most yards in one game. He holds the record for most yards in a career. He holds the record for most total yards in a career. Holds the record for most yards receiving by a running back. He was also a great blocker. He just had a marvelous career because he had something that even the coaches didn't know about. I know Mike Singletary. Now, Mike Singletary is a tongue-talking. You think I'm on fire? When we have chapel in the Bears training camp, this man is incredible. You know how he plays football? He's voiced in chapel. And he gets in there, and he gets into God. He is a spirit-filled, I'm talking dynamic man of God. I'm going to try to get him to come here for you guys. He is super. When they drafted him in the Chicago Bears, they said he's too small, he's not strong enough, he's not smart enough for the Bears' 4-6 defense, which is a very complex defense. All he's done in the last 2 out of 3 years has win the most valuable defensive player in all the NFL. He had something they didn't know about. He had God. Dave Blakeman is a friend of mine. He plays for the Detroit Tigers. You see, God's got Christians everywhere. He got saved in the revival I was holding in Flint, Michigan 3 years ago. They were going to cut him. They gave him a spring training invitation. Since he's gotten saved and spirit-filled, he's had the 2 greatest seasons of his whole career. He just signed a contract for $560-something thousand, a man that was washed up till he found Jesus. When you get Jesus, he can make the difference. What I'm trying to say to you, you can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do. You can take your life and be a success if you live your life for him. If you purpose in your heart that you will not defile yourself, if you make up your mind that regardless what anyone else does, I'm going to live for God. I'm going to tell you why. Peer pressure will keep you down. It is lonely at the top. There's only one heavyweight champion. There's only one Super Bowl winner. There's only one world champion in baseball. And there's very, very few people that ever get anywhere in this world. But you can do anything you want to do. But I'm going to tell you something. If you don't have God, you may not think it. You may not do 1 day in jail. You may never do drugs. But you're still lost. And you're going to be standing in front of some man someday, just like old Chuck Connors did, and say, I'll give you everything I got just to feel what you feel. What I'm saying, if I say anything, say no to drugs, And that includes alcohol. Say no to peer pressure. Not because I don't want you to have fun, but drugs kill people. Alcohol kills people. Sin kills people. I saw a kid, and I shot from the needle, passed it to him. He got some stuff, and he shot it. Same junk. And I saw him quiver like an animal and die. We carried him outside and stuck him with somebody's Volkswagen. I don't even know who owned the car. We just stuck him there because he was dead. I don't know how many kids I've buried. I don't know how many church kids I've buried. How many of my visiting drug centers all over the nation. I knew a girl in Chicago who was a church girl, and I go see her. Her name is Billy Joe. I go see her every time I'm home. And all she does is sit and rock. She got high. She wondered what her eyes looked like. So she reached in and she pulled them out so she could look at them. And she sits there with two holes in her face where two beautiful eyes used to sit. And she rots. I can't tell you the kids I know that have totally lost their mind. And you know what's horrible, friend? The drugs they got out today, you could do them one time and be in trouble. One time and you can die. When I was a drug pusher, if I got a bad batch of pot, I would lace it with strychnine to make it more potent. And I'd sit there stoned out of my mind pouring strychnine on pot like I knew what I was doing. I've known girls, beautiful little girls like that are here tonight to go buy drugs. The pusher says, come to my apartment because I don't have any on me. They go to the apartment, the pusher rapes them. They go to the cops and they tell the cops, I just got raped. They say, well, what happened? Well, I went to buy drugs. You know what they do with that case? They file it. Where they never work on it because it won't hold up. Sin kills. You may never think you'll do anything like that. Once a girl's lost her virginity, she can't get it back. I hope that don't offend nobody. But you don't know the amount of girls I've seen go to parties with no intentions of doing that. And guys go around and slip stuff in their drinks and end up getting abused. You're right. I'll fight sin. I'll fight for you. I'll call drugs what they are. Stay true to God. You can do anything you want to do. You're better than a high. You've got more to offer than to be buzzed out of your mind. You've got a future. You say, Brother John, I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. You stay unsaved long enough, you're going to be doing drugs. I guarantee it. Well, I wouldn't mess around. I wouldn't commit fornication. You stay unsaved long enough, you'll do it. We don't control sin. Sin controls you. And I shared everything that I have that you can just realize. We got 3 boys from Lee College right now that are up on armed robbery charges. They came from Christian homes, preachers' sons, freshmen. They're going to go to prison. Chances are, if God doesn't work a miracle, they're going to get raped in prison. The only reason why I survived, I was a member of a major street gang. But it didn't stop them from stabbing me in prison. When you do drugs, they're illegal. You get a judge that's got to get so many convictions, and you just happen to got busted that week, you're going. And there's people in there that don't care. Satan don't care. He has no feelings at all. What I'm saying to you, don't let the devil shortchange you. Don't let the devil take away from you. If Walter Payton, without his talent, could have made it, if Mike Singletary can make it, if I can make it, what can you do? Don't look back 10 years from now at 10 years of regret. If the Lord waits 10 years, look back at 10 years of victory in Christ Jesus. But I want to share one little thing. I don't know what you might have done. I don't know how many of you have done drugs or whatever sins you may have committed. But the other side of the coin is God specializes in being the God of a second chance. He can take your shattered life. He can take those sins, and though you'll have the memory of them, He can wash them away. And He can give you a great, great, great future. If God can take me, what could God do with you? Those that have had the privilege of being raised in the church. And I said all this to say this. Don't ever leave God, because Satan will not have any mercy. He'll take away your dignity. He'll take away your manhood. He'll take away everything that's dear to you. And why? Why should you ever know what I knew? Why should you ever have to know the degradation I knew? Why should you ever have to know the bottom of a gutter? Why should you have to know what it's like to be an animal? Why? So don't wait until that happens. Serve Him now. I love you guys. Just want to share some time with you. I love you.